Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to this live stream. My name is JP. This is John Paul Music UK, and in this live stream, we're going to be talking about how to choose your looper. Now, if you're not familiar with my channel, then you'll be not aware that we do a lot of thing about looping and looping pedals. And looping pedals are all about basically sort of looping and making your own song with a pedal where you record yourself. It couldn't be a pedal, it could be a tabletop looper, or it can be an app as well. And we're going to go over a couple of things today, and I just want to actually explain a couple of things because I've been getting asked a lot of questions, you know, which looper should I get? So let me know in the comment section. We've got the chat just here. I nearly got that wrong. We've got the chat just here, and then what we've also got as well is this chat is a multi-host chat. So at the moment, the chat itself is working on multiple places at the same time. So it's working on YouTube, it's working on Facebook, it's working on Twitch as well, and I believe it's working on LinkedIn. We are posting to five different places all at the same time, and we're just basically, that was me typing, by the way, saying where you're watching from. Let me know where you're watching from. Type in the comments below just here, and you're going to see the chat, and you're going to see people can have conversations across different platforms, which is fantastic. The other thing as well, as you may have noticed, this live stream is sponsored, and it's sponsored by our friends over at DistroKid. So give me 1 second. Can people let me know in the chat, the word DistroKid on my t-shirt, is it the right way round or is it backwards? I've just realised it looks backwards from where I am. However, basically this is sponsored, and this is sponsored by our friends over at DistroKid. I think it's backwards. I'm gonna have to switch it around. And these guys basically have very graciously decided to sponsor us, and if you're not sure what DistroKid is, it's a place where you can distribute all your music. So if you're making music, and whether it's looping, whether it's hip hop, whether it's dance music, whether it's classical music, whether it's instrumental, whether it's game music, you can actually give your music to them, and what they do is they send it out to all the digital streaming sites around the world, which at the moment there's around about 160 different sites. And that includes places like social media sites like Facebook, like TikTok, Instagram, and people can then use your music inside their stories and their reels, which then you get paid for that. And DistroKid have a tier system where basically instead of charging you per release, they charge you one price per year, and that price can start as low as $19.99. However, with the link that's just there, you can actually get 7% off your first annual membership. Now there's a couple of different tiers, so if you want to schedule the date of your release, or you're in two different bands, or if you're a solo artist who's also in a band, you can get Musicians Plus, which is $35.99 dollars, and then also there's a label option as well, which starts at $80 and goes up from there, depending on how many bands you manage. And you get 7% off with that link, no matter which tier you use. So I just want to thank DistroKid for saying basically that they would sponsor the video and the live stream. And yeah, I just wanted to do that. I'm just going to turn something on that I forgot to turn on. Not that one. That one. There we go. So yeah, so basically give the link a click. On a couple of the streaming sites there is a description, and in the description the link is in that description box. So yeah, good evening. Hi. I've been getting lots of questions about basically what looper to get, so I decided to do this, which is how to choose a loop pedal. And how do you choose a loop pedal? Well, if you're thinking about getting into looping, maybe you're an old hat at this, maybe you've been doing looping for a long time, let me know. Let me know if you use a looper here, let the audience know, because if you're interested, this is the questions that maybe you're a bit too afraid to ask. Maybe you've looked at looping videos and you go, oh, I don't know if I can ask this question. This is the perfect time to do this. So give us a shout in the chat and let us know basically, first of all, where you're watching from, but also let us know if you're using a looper or if you're thinking about maybe upgrading to a new looper. I've got a couple of loopers here on the table. They are tabletop, they are foot pedal loopers, but we're going to discuss tabletop and app loopers as well. So I've got a couple of things I want to discuss with you regarding the loopers and what you want to use, what you should be using. We can have a look at that, and it's lots of different things we can go over. So this is what this is all about. So I'm going to start off with the first thing, which is inputs. Now, when you're thinking about going into looping, a lot of people kind of dip their toe into maybe an app now more than actually using a pedal. The reason because of how cheap it is. You can buy an app for a couple of pounds. There's even free apps there that you can actually get as well. But you need to have a look at basically what inputs you want. So if you're a keyboard player and you sing and you've got a keyboard that has sounds coming out of it, you're going to need to be able to plug that keyboard in as well as a looper. Maybe you want to loop the keyboard, but you don't want to loop your voice. Or like me, if you play guitar and then also you sing as well. I also play keyboards as well. Just one right there. But if you sing and play guitar, there's cables all over it. Sorry, I didn't tie that up. But then it depends on how many inputs you need. So the question is then, you're going to start looking at things like different loopers for different inputs. So that brings me on to my first kind of pedal, which I've just got here, which if I just put on the table and let's go to there. So this, hi Chris, how you doing? This is what's called the circle looper. So this is one that I've done a review on, and it's basically a one phrase looper, clicky buttons, and it's also got a rhythm section as well, and we'll go on to rhythms in a minute. But if you have a look at the inputs are 2 jacks. Now, if you've got like a microphone like this, for example, like a XLR microphone, you're going to need an adapter. So you have to think about that. And then you've also got the outputs. So the outputs are left and right, and that's it. So they've basically got left and right outputs. If you move over to something like this, which is the sort of Boss equivalent of that, this is the Boss RC5. This is the 5th generation single phrase looper. Again, it's all jack inputs. So if you've got a microphone, again, you're going to need an adapter for that. Now, you might get a microphone that's got a jack adapter. That's not an issue. And then you've got your outputs here, but you can see there the way they've printed it. It says input A and B and output A and B. Now, obviously, if you just plug into input A, it's mono, and then output A and B is mono as well. So you could plug in maybe a vocal going into A and a guitar going into B, and they can go to separate places. So these two kind of loopers are really kind of important when you're thinking about what you want to do with them, where you can basically play with them. And this leads me nicely on to the second thing, which of course is then outputs. So when you go over to outputs, you've just got to figure out where you're routing. Now, it's ones like this, they've got 2 outputs, and we've got basically a left and a right, or a output A or output B, and that's fine, no problem at all. That's quite easy. When you step up, I've got to get this over. When you step up to something like this, of course is the Boss RC600. This is my current loop board. And I'm just going to change the camera here just so you can see it very easily. This has multiple ins and multiple outs. So if let me just get the camera right, there we go. So there's all our ins, all there. And then you've got outputs, you've got sub outputs, you've got headphone outputs as well. So you've actually got quite a lot that you can play with. And of course you can route them to different places. So that's quite a contrast depending on what you're doing. If you're looking at things like an app, then if you're just using your headphones to use the app, that's fine. And that's fine if you're just playing at home. But if you're going to be playing on like a local bar or a club or on stage, then you're going to need, certainly if it's an app that's on like an iOS platform or an Android platform, you're going to need an audio interface. Now, you can get an audio interface. I was meant to bring them over so I didn't have to reach, but I forgot them, so I'm just going to have to go over here. These are my 2 audio interfaces. So this is an audio interface I've had for years, and this is the Focus Scarlett 2i2. This is the 2nd generation one, so it's USB Type B. So how on earth do I then get that into something like an iPhone or an iPad? Well, you're going to need an adapter. Same with this one. This is my latest kind of portable one that I was very graciously given by Arturia to review, and I've kept it because it's great. I really like it. And this has got 2 in, and it's a combi jacks just like this one, and it's actually USB-C. And what I've found is that on the latest iPad, that just plugs straight in and I don't need an adapter as long as you've got a USB-C to C cable. So the cable that I use to charge my iPad with it'll run it. However, if I have then got something like this microphone, which needs 48-volt phantom power, it draws a lot of power, and then of course you're going to need more power. So these are things you have to think about if you're kind of going up a little bit, going pro a little bit on the loop side for apps. You can go really, really pro with it, where you have multiple ins, multiple outs, but then what you've got is more gear. And having more stuff is it's kind of like the unspoken kind of word about it. It's cool to go and get an app for kind of like £7 or £8, but then what you do realize, or $7, $8, and then what you realize is that app is now going to need it's going to need an audio interface. You might need a Midi controller to control buttons, because you might not want to touch the screen, or maybe even if it's a phone, it's quite small compared to something like an iPad or a tablet of any kind. So these things you need to think about, and it's not just a case of that. Whereas dedicated loopers, tabletop loopers, or floor-based loopers, they are dedicated to do one thing, but of course then they can cost more off the offset, because they might also not fit your needs. So we've talked about inputs and outputs. The next one I want to talk about is loops and overdubs. Chris, I hope you're still there. Anyone else who is watching, please let me know where you're watching from, whether you're watching this on Facebook, whether you're watching it on Twitch, LinkedIn, YouTube. We've got basically loads of different channels here. We're even on Twitter. So let us know, obviously, if you're there, and also let us know what loop pedal you're thinking of getting, or if you've got one already, what do you use? The next thing I want to talk about, as I say, is loops and overdubs. Now, I started looping with, I've said this before, a loop pedal, which was a floor-based pedal, and I was inspired by Katie Tunstall. Katie Tunstall did a performance, her first TV live performance in the UK, which was on Jules Holland, and she did Black Horse and the Cherry Tree live, and my face just dropped. I was like, what? How is she doing that? What is she doing? It's amazing. Since then, looping, of course, is well known, obviously, with other genres as well, but also well known in the mainframe now because of people like Ed Sheeran, Katie Tunstall, and others who use loop pedals. And loop pedals, the pedals themselves, the floor-based ones, have come a long, long way. Boss brought out a loop pedal which was an RC20. Then they brought out this, which was the RC30, and then they brought out the 50, which was 3 versions of this, basically. So I've still got this. This is my old baby. This is the one I looped with for years. So basically the 30. I had the 20XL, which had more loop time. But if you have a look at the back of it, then what you've got is basically, it was the first one really to have an XLR, dedicated XLR, and then stereo in, so you could plug in a keyboard or a guitar and something else. The one I started with, the very first one I started with, was the Akai Headrush E2. I was so obsessed with what Katie Tunstall did that I actually figured out that's what she was using, and I went and bought one. It's a nightmare. It was a nightmare machine. It had no, you didn't have any undo or redo. You didn't have, you had overdubs. You had only a small amount of record time. It was technically a tape delay effect pedal, but it was a looper. And it only had one input. And if you wanted to plug in more than that, you needed to basically get a mini mixer and then plug that mini mixer into the Headrush. The Headrush E2 it was called, so have a Google of it. It was there, and that was my first looper. But yeah, guys in the chat, just very, very quickly, just realizing this at the beginning of the stream, that which says DistroKid, is that forwards or backwards to you? Let me know in the chat, please, because it's backwards from where I can see, but I hope it's forwards where you can see it. If not, I don't know if I can spin it round. But I just want to know. So yeah, so basically, loops and overdubs. You can do a lot with something like that. You can do a hell of a lot with something like that. And this is what's known as a one-phrase looper, basically meaning that you can only record one phrase, and then you can record lots of overdubs on top of that one phrase, but I can't have two separate phrases. There's a little bit of a cheat around that though, because things like this is a one phrase looper as well. This is the circle looper by Donna, and it's fabulous. And that doesn't have two loops, that has one loop and a rhythm button. And this, you have a rhythm button as well, but it's just there. And you can expand on that as well. We'll talk about expansion in a moment. But there's a trick with one phrase loopers that you can do where you can add a second loop on, which is basically an overdub. And then you can do what's called undo redo, and you can undo it to take it away again and redo it to bring it back. And that's a fabulous little trick you can do with one phrase loopers. You can't change the loop. However, you could go up to another memory, because these store memories. So the circle looper stores 40 memories, and then if you go from one memory to another, the circle looper has a unique feature that it auto saves. You don't have to press save on it at all. You just go up to the next loop and it's saved it from the previous loop. That's massive with something like this, because these things are really, really cheap to buy now. So I think this is around about 70 odd pounds. And it's got 40 memories, and it can do both rhythm and one phrase looper. So you could go one phrase looper, memory up, and then go to the chorus, which is different chords, go memory down, and then the stuff that you had was already there. This has the availability, where is it? Little alert there. There is a external control. I'm pointing at that and it's not even on. That's clever. This has a external control, which is just there, and that's a separate in to plug in a different pedal, to plug in basically a switch, and that switch could let you go memory up, memory down, things like that. This has that as well, so you can do the memory up, memory down thing. The difference with the Boss Looper is if you go memory up and then go back down to memory down, it erases the loop unless you pre-saved it already. So you can do the one phrase loop thing with overdubs. So you can actually go, imagine you've got your first loop, and that could be a rhythm or you singing or a chords progression. Then you can have another loop on top. You can actually have many on top. You can have many overdubs, and then the undo will undo the last recording that you did. So you can take that away, still have that chugging away, and then bring that back. Sometimes people do it in reverse. What they'll do is they'll play the chorus and overdub the chorus. So chorus number one, you overdub it, and then what you do is you then take it away again with an undo, and then you'll be able to bring that back for chorus two. So things like that are very clever. But it's still a one phrase looper. Excuse me. So how can we expand upon that? Well, that's by going up to things like two phrase loopers. So I've got another one phrase looper here before we go over to two phrase loopers, and it's something I use all the time, but I don't use it as a looper, and it is the TC Helicon Voice Live Play Acoustic. Now, where are we? We're there we go. So this actually has a loop pedal built into it, but I actually use it because it's got loads of effects. And this thing is part of my pedal board, and I have a new pedal board that's coming, and that's coming soon, and there will be a review about that pedal board as well, because I'm quite excited about it. And this has loads of effects on board, but it does have a looper on board, so you can hold the buttons down, these two buttons, and it enters into looper mode. And what you can do, and I'm just getting it now, what you can do is you can expand upon that. This is made by TC Helicon, and they don't really kind of make this anymore, but you can still get them, but they do make them, but they haven't made any more advancements on this. But what you can get, which I had for ages, is this. And this is what's called the Switch 6 pedal. And as you can see here, if you have a close look at it, what it actually has is it has up, down, hit, play, record, stop, clear, loop, increase. So you've actually got buttons there on the front. Are you zooming in or are you focusing? No, it's not really focusing, is it? There we go. So you can actually see underneath you've got basically controls there. And it's one cable, literally one cable at the top, and that plugs into the pedal cable, the pedal butt thing on the back there. So it actually plugs in there. And that means with this and this, you can actually control your effects, and you can control the looper at the same time. And I did that for a couple of years. So I've still got all the Velcro on the back of it. Look. with one of my hairs. Lovely. Yeah, and I kept it because it's actually really useful if you want to go out to say like an open mic night and you don't want to take a full rig with a full like massive 6-track looper with you, but you want your effects. Then you've got this and this, and you can just take that out. And that's it, away you go. So this is great for taking out to smaller gigs, or this might be all you need. I'm just putting that back down there because I've actually got a lot of equipment on the desk today. So this kind of also leads me nicely onto effects. So when you're looking for a new looper, or when you're looking for a looper, you may buy a looper to begin with and do exactly what I did. When I bought my very, very first looper, the only way you can get effects into it is by having the effect pedal. A lot of loopers now have effects built in. And what can happen is you can have effects that go on the loop itself, or you can affect the loop. So for something like the RC600, the Headrush looper boards, which is here, I was going to lift it up, but it's really heavy. You've got effects for that, and they are monsters for things like that. Even things like this, which is quite old now, which is the RC30, you can just about see there on this side, there are a number of effects. Come on, camera. There we go. There we go. So you've got a number of effects just here, and then you can press it here, and you can also get an expansion pedal on here to kind of change them as well if you want to. So there was things like bend down, step phaser, sweep, filter, tempo delay, lo-fi. Whether you use them or not is another issue. But if you do looping where you're using your voice, you'll suddenly realize, unless you've got a 4-octave range in your voice, that the frequencies within that become pretty constrained. So you can do nice tricks with things like, I've got to use the TC Helicon for this, and I'm going to be using it for the RC600, where you've got like an octave down. So you can start making bass noises, octave up, and you can start filling the space, the audible space, with different frequencies. This fills out your loops a lot, because obviously if you've got a radio element, like a radio effect, that's just a phrased looper, and you just go, but it sounds like a radio. It's nowhere near this kind of impact you're going to get from, like, you know, 3 voices, like, all doing beatboxing, for example. So effects can really, really change your looping and change the gear up on that. And it's one of these things where you may not have them to begin with, or maybe you have got effects and you go, well, I've got all the effects I need, I just need a looper at the end of my pedal board to loop stuff. And that's the other thing as well with effects. What effects do you need? But also, do you need all your effects going into the looper? I was going to say just singing, I don't mean just singing, but if you are singing and you don't have harmony effects or anything like that, you're predominantly a singer and you play piano, but you want to loop the piano, but you don't want to loop the singing, then you might not need any effects for the vocal. That'll just go out to the main PA and just completely bypass the looper completely. But the looper may only be for the piano, because you may play the piano or change the sounds on the piano, so you've got different sounds like a keyboard or synthesizer, whatever. If you're like me and you use a guitar, I use acoustic guitars, but if you use acoustic, if you use electric, you may very already have effects already, either built in into an amp, which then of course poses a problem. Because if you put a load of loops in and then put it into that amp and then hit like a distortion, it'll distort all the loops. However, if you've got a distortion pedal before the looper, you can choose to turn that on and off, and then where that loop that gets looped or not. So you can then start choosing where things go. Predominantly, a lot of people put loopers at the very end of the signal chain, like the last thing before going out to the PA. Some people don't. Some people put it obviously in the middle because they want some things looped and some things not. And also they want the loops affected. So they might go, well, I want the loop to have a phased effect, or I want the loop to have a delay on it. So now with things like the 600 and also with the Headrush, that looper board, and other ones as well, you have what are called track effects, so as opposed to input effects. So input effects are where you affect the input and you record that and you bake it into the recording, whereas track effects affect the track, they affect the loop itself. So I'll give you an example of a bass. So you could have an input effect with a bass sound. So then your voice will sound like a bass sound. And then when you hit the recording on the loop, that's baked in. The alternative is you could sing in your normal voice or play in your normal guitar, and then you could have a track effect that affects the sound of the track and brings that an octave down. So that's specific to the 600, but basically you've got all the 505 Mark II. But you can also do this now in apps. So things like Loopy Pro, Quantaloop, L7, they're all loopers, but now you can put them into other apps. So you can put a looper inside another app, for example, like a DAW app. So there's loads of different ways you can actually put effects into a loop or affect the loop. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So yes, so I wanted to talk about a couple of things. So if you've missed, obviously, some of what we've been talking about this evening, we've been talking about, obviously, input effects, output effects, loops and overdubs, and we've just got over to effects. So just before we carry on, though, I just want to say, basically, this bit over here is what we call the multi-chat. So this is where you can say hi, ask you questions. I'm going to be answering a couple of questions if you've got them, and that's basically your opportunity to just basically let me know whether you're thinking about upgrading to a different looper. What should you get? It's all based on how you do stuff. The other thing as well, obviously, with this specific live stream, this live stream is sponsored, and it's sponsored by our friends over at DistroKid. DistroKid is a distribution company where you give your music to them and they can distribute it out to all the different places like Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, Amazon, Deezer. There's loads of others, but also loads of social media sites as well. And if you click the link that's on the screen, it's also in the description box below on a couple of different streaming sites. You can actually get 7%. Hi, Mike. How are we doing? You can get 7% off your first annual subscription with them because DistroKid charge you annually, and it only starts at $19.99, and they can give you basically 7% off that with that link, which is really good. If you go for things like Musicians Plus, which is what I'm on, where you have two outlets. So you got basically one is you, and the other one could be like a band. I'm part of a duo, which is a 80s synthwave called Tokyo Wasteland. Check it out. Then you can basically do Musicians Plus, but the nice thing about Musicians Plus is you can also schedule the release date of your singles, of your EPs, your albums. So you could actually make hundreds of songs in a year, release them all, and it still only cost you one price. So for me, it costs $35.99. $35.99. So for me, it's about 32 quid to release as much as I want within 1 year, which is great. And then click that link and you'll get 7% off. I'm very well, Mike. Thank you. We're obviously on the last day of April, and then tomorrow it's gonna be me. It's going to be me. I had to do it. Sorry. Live as well. I wasn't challenged either. I just felt like doing it. So we are talking about how to choose a loop pedal, sponsored by DistroKid. Now, when I bring the screen back, you'll notice very quickly there is a chat here where you can chat on different places. So Chris, if I just point to Chris, which is there, who's just chatting on Facebook, and Mike is on YouTube. We're actually streaming to 5 different places tonight. So we're streaming to YouTube, Facebook, my Facebook page, my Twitch account, my LinkedIn account, and we're also on Twitter. So if you want to say hi, let us know where you're streaming from, where you're from, and then also if you're looking at looping. If you've got any questions for me regarding loop pedals or tabletop loopers or apps, then this is the time to ask, because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be going over a couple of different things. Now, I've been going over things like loops and stuff like that. I'm just going to go back over one thing, which was loops and overdubs. And the reason is because we talk about loops in phrases. So have you got a 1-phrase looper, a 2-phrase looper, a 3-phrase looper, a 6-phrase looper, a 12-phrase looper, which you can now do with things like apps. The other thing as well is you need to kind of take a look at the songs that you're creating. If you're creating songs where you want to split everything up, you may not have to split absolutely everything. For example, whether you're going to be looping everything all together at once, or whether you're going to be doing things like a verse, a chorus, and a bridge. And that's what we call single phrase looping, where you loop something, and then when you go over to the chorus, it jumps to the other loop. Where that first loop doesn't play. But then multi-phrase looping is where you might have 3 loops, like an RC300, and then you've got basically, you can do single phrase on that as well, but basically you can also do multi-phrase, which is the norm, where basically phrase 1 is like the drums, phrase 2 is the bass, and then phrase 3 is harmonies, and they all play together, and that's multi-phrase looping. And it depends on what you want to do. There's some songs that it's very difficult to do single phrase looping because there's just so many different parts. However, there's songs that are 3 chords long all the way through, and you can loop very, very easily. So when you're looking at looping, obviously if you're looping your own stuff, like your own creations, which should be on DistroKid, by the way, but if you are looping your own creations, then what you can do is you can obviously you know, almost break down your song. That's what I do. So I actually take my song and I break it apart into the bits and go, can this be put onto a looper? Some of them can't, because they're being played on keyboards with strings and choirs, and it's very intricate, and there's many different chord progressions, whereas some are like, can be, basically. And the thing with that as well is that you've got the option to, hi JP, you legend. Watching live on YouTube, Delta Sunrise. Do you know what? It's a lovely thing to say, Delta Sunrise. It's just a lovely, it's great, I like that. Hi guys, how we doing? So the other thing is with looping is you may find that when you get a looper, and I've had a looper, we're now, my original loop pedal, I think we're pushing 18 years, maybe 19 years. I've been looping a long time. And what can happen sometimes is when you're playing with a looper, it's fantastic for practice. It's fantastic for getting your rhythms right. It's also fantastic for just figuring out, hi, how we doing? So it was fantastic just for figuring out, does that harmony work? So you could put a harmony down, or maybe you've got a lead and you want to make sure the chords are right for it to go through. So it just depends. It just totally depends on, you know, whether it works that way or not. But it's a great let me start that again. It's a great practice device, but also at the same time, it can also trigger new songs. So a couple of my songs now, I do have a looper in mind when I'm creating them, kind of going, ooh, could I loop this? Could I not loop this? So it shouldn't obviously hinder your creation, but having a loop pedal, it depends obviously on what you're doing with your loops and your overdubs. Oop, there, see what I did there? Loops and overdubs. But also it depends whether you're plugging in, you know, 6 different inputs, or if you're actually sending those loops to different places for your outputs. I hope that makes sense. It's all kind of tying together now. So before buying any looper, and you're already kind of making music for yourself, step back and kind of go, what kind of loop pedal do I need? Do I need it to be 1 phrase? Do I need it to be 6 phrases? You'll see people go, the bigger the better, and it does give you more options, but you might not ever use them. You might not need them. I had a loop pedal that I suddenly realised everything. I had 3 phrases. I'll just say which one it was. It was the RC300. I had the RC300, and for the first year of using it, I only used 2 of the phrases. And the reason for that was because I was so used to that. And that is the RC30, and you had to kind of hold down the button for 2 seconds to track select to go over to the second one. And I would just go, phrase 1 drums, phrase 2 bass and harmony, and then suddenly went, oh, I can put the harmony on the 3rd track. Of course I can. And then you start realizing you can actually split the track up into bits, and maybe when you're doing a breakdown, take the drums away. So you end up doing that. So you end up thinking a little bit differently when you're playing live, but also you're thinking about the construction of the song on the fly, which is really good. Mike, thanks to you and your video some months ago, I learned to use the Boss RC5 as a backing track. Works perfectly for me playing with my Gibson Studio. Thanks for your help. And kind regards to the channel. You're more than welcome, Chris. So we did a series all on the Boss RC5 and 500, and this little bad boy, we actually turned it on one of the videos into a pure backing track machine. So this is a looper, but the thing is, at the same time, I am going to lift it up, and I said I wasn't going to lift it up, but I am going to lift it up. This Oh, I'm getting old now. This thing is not a boombox, but this is the Headrush looper board, and it's got a little bit of dust on it, and it's because I've not been using it, because I've moved over to the Boss RC600. Having said that, this is not a bad looper. This is a fantastic looper. I do miss this 7-inch touchscreen, but this thing was someone asked me, can that do backing tracks? And I said, yes, it can. It has a backing track system built in. And they said, cool, I only want to use it for backing tracks. And I quickly said, that is the wrong product for you. That is the wrong thing. That is the wrong looper to buy, because that's got multi-phrase looping, it's got effects and everything else. And at the time, it was £700 to buy. So we quickly talked about this one. And this is not £700. This is a lot cheaper. And I think you can pick it up for around about 100 and, what is it, 140, something like that. And even cheaper if you find it in sort of like sales and stuff. And then we turn this into a backing track machine, which is fantastic because you can literally go, it's not 99 memories, it's got really, really high quality audio, it's got 13 hours of record time, and you can just go next, next, next. And we turned each track into a one shot. So as you tap it, it starts playing, and when it gets to the end of the file, it just stops, and then you just go on to the next one. If you were to tap it again in the middle of the song, it will pause it, or I think Mike will tell me now that you can it basically instantly winds back to the beginning. So you can do that, can't you, Mike? You have to remind me. It's been a while. But yeah, you can actually turn any looper into a backing track machine, because it's a loop pedal. But actually, all it's doing is it's playing a file, and if you've preloaded files onto it, you're just pressing play, and you don't need a CD player. This is really robust, and you can have that at the bottom of your microphone stand, and just press it and go. I've seen singers who are just they're singers and they're performers, and they don't play any instrument, and they sing to backing tracks, and you see them with literally rack-mounted MIDI players and like sort of like MP3 players, and it was CD players, and now they need to think about something like that, because that's robust as hell. It's built like a tank. So is this one, the Donna Circle looper, but you can't really one-shot that one. But yeah, it was just a great moment where we actually were able to figure out, with a looper, you can actually just have it as a backing track machine, and you can do that with pretty much all of them, which is really, really good. Now, we've been talking about inputs, outputs, loops, overdubs, effects. The next thing, which is a bit of I'm not going to say sore point, but basically it's going to be relevant to some people and not relevant to others. And it's Midi. Now, there's different kinds of Midi, and if I say Midi, you might just switch off completely, but please don't, because hear me out. He says as he takes a sip. Midi, when I talk about Midi, there's different kinds, and that's why I've said what kind at the bottom there. You've either got MIDI commands and MIDI signals to trigger things, and you've also got MIDI program changes, and you've also got MIDI as in, most people think I say MIDI, they think MIDI keyboard. We're not playing sounds on the MIDI keyboard. What we're talking about is triggering commands. So this, I'm going back to this again, this is a one-phrase looper. This is the RC5, it's a one-phrase looper, and it has MIDI on the outside. These two little holes here are TRS MIDI. Basically, it's a MIDI. It has the capability to have MIDI. This is a MIDI pedal, and this is a 8-pedal MIDI pedal, but this Morningstar MC8 has loads of tricks up its sleeve. I won't say a trick, but it's got loads of tricks. So if I press that, I tell it what CC number and what command number it is, and then I tell it what that CC number should be, and then you say, well, on this CC number, what do you want it to do? So straight away, and I did this on one of the videos about this, if you put these with these, what you can then do is you can go trigger the rhythm section, press stop, memory up, memory down, and you can do all kinds. So this suddenly becomes a 9-pedal looper. It's still a one-phrase looper, but it's a 9-pedal looper. So instead of buying, you can buy additional pedals to go into this and have 1 or 2 pedals. But by having something like this, you've got different commands. You could say tap the tempo, and then literally it's there, the tempo. Instead of actually pressing that tiny little button and bending down, you could tap the tempo. You could say start the rhythm, stop the rhythm, track up, track down. Yeah, so there's loads this can do. Now you can actually get this to send signals out to multiple pedals at the same time. So if you've got an effects pedal, you could say turn on and also start this. So you could do multiple things, because you can send 16 MIDI commands with this with one pedal, which is pretty amazing. And the guys over at Morningstar, this is an amazing pedal that just keeps evolving. The MC3, the MC6 Mark II, the MC8, all of them are basically the same pedal, but obviously with slightly different variations. This is the biggest one so far. And they have different banks. You can have different banks for different things, and they keep evolving it through firmware, and it just gets better and better and better. And a just big shout out to Morningstar, because this thing is just a monster, but it's a friendly monster, and it's very, very good at just basically programming it up. So something like that, which MIDI pedals, it's becoming a bit more normal now to kind of like go, I've got a MIDI pedal, I'm going to trigger my delay to switch on when I hit the chorus. And that is a big thing for guitarists, because MIDI, I say MIDI, people go 1980s keyboards straight, and 1990s keyboards. MIDI pedals have really started to come in, and have even started to come in on their own. There's a sequence you can do on this where you can actually send continuous MIDI commands at the same time to create the equivalent of a sine wave to make it sound like a wah pedal, just by holding it down. So by holding it down, it'll just literally send continuous MIDI commands to kind of like do that, and that could be turning the an oscillator, or it could be doing something on another pedal. So that's huge. That's a massive thing. So MIDI obviously isn't for everyone, and you might not need it at all. Now it depends on what you're using. You may want that to control an actual keyboard. You might want it to control something else. But the other thing as well is that MIDI commands for pedals are kind of different to MIDI commands for these, kind of. You can even get it where you can have the CC numbers hitting the drum pad. So it's like you've created a drum pad on the floor, and you go boom, boom, by pressing the two buttons. So MIDI's kind of expanding over the past couple of years, certainly for people who do looping, because it means that yes, you're doing more pedal dancing, but you've got more control. So I think that is obviously something to take into consideration. Right then, so the big one, the big question, if you're looking to choose a looper, as I've got here, how to choose a loop pedal. I said loop pedal. What I should have said is how to choose a looper, because the big question, which is on quite a lot of people's minds at the moment because of the advancements, is this one: floor, tabletop, or app. Now, I am a floor pedal looper predominantly, and I've also used apps. Tabletop wise, there's not a lot of choice out there other than Boss's 5 range. So the 202, the 505, and the new 505 Mark II. There are a couple of others as well, but this question right here: should I do a floor pedal looper, a tabletop looper, or an app looper? And this question comes with basically an answer people don't like, and it's, how do you want to loop? Because I've got a floor pedal looper. I've got quite a few, because that's what I do. That's my hobby, which has turned into a YouTube channel. So floor pedal loopers, like this bad boy, which of course is my new master looper. This is the one that I use. This is my main control now, which is the Boss RC600. It's got 6 tracks, 6 loops. It's got loads of effects. It's got loads of other stuff as well. That's fine. And then you get people who get this, and I've seen a couple of people who are like, cool, how do I get a MIDI mixer? Because I want to control all the volumes with my hands. Go and buy an RC505, because it's 5 tracks and it's got faders on every track. And you may feel that you might need to choose one or the other. And the great thing is that with the floor pedal one, you can add hand controls like a MIDI mixer or a real mixer. You could actually pump out literally 6 different tracks in 6 different outputs to a mixer, and have the mixer there, the audible the normal audio mixer, and do it that way. Or you could have a tabletop, and the tabletop can actually have a pedal connected to it. So you may want to start the loop off with a guitar. You might be a guitar singer-songwriter, but you like the idea of sort of using a mix. Oh, my voice is only on the left channel? Is it really? Ah, hang on. I didn't know that. Thank you very much for telling me that, because it shouldn't be doing that. Right, hang on a minute. Audio fuse. Right, so I'm sorry about this. We're just doing this. There we go. Audio inputs. There. Don't know why it's doing that. It shouldn't be. Let me know if it's coming out of both channels now. I hope it is. The music is stereo, but my voice is on the left. HobbyFin2, thank you very much for letting me know. I didn't know that. What about now? Let me know if it's in... I've just turned everything on my audio interface to mono, so hopefully... Nope. Oh, okay. Alright then. Well, you've got a free ear then. I don't think I can change it without breaking the stream. So I don't know why that's doing that, and I didn't know it's doing that, but thank you for telling me. It is telling me that that should be mono out on that. Weird. It's still coming out the left channel, correct? It's okay to listen. Okay, fine. Cool. All right then. Great. As long as it's okay. I'm sorry about that. I will fix that for the next live stream. That shouldn't be happening. That's the beauty of live streams. Things can happen. Things can go wrong. And I will fix that next time. Where is that doing that? How about now? What does that sound like? Tell me if that's mono or stereo. Tell me if it's coming in both ears. It should be now. It says it should be in mono. Anyway, so back to our conversation. Yes, cool. All right, brilliant. I'm sorry about that. For the past 49 minutes, I've been in one ear. Brilliant. Well, maybe people who've had one ear in have looked at the stream going, I can't hear him. And then they've come off again. Anyway, in stereo now. David, thank you very much. HobbyFin2, thank you very much. And I'm sorry for everyone else that it's not been in stereo. I apologise. So let's have a quick look where we're up to. Yes, floor, tabletop, or app. Now, I'm going to talk about apps because apps seem to be the crossover point between sort of floor and tabletop, because you've got things like Loopy HD, which of course I used for a while, and I've done tutorials on that as well. And then the new Loopy Pro. And the new Loopy Pro is phenomenal. It's a phenomenal app. It's fantastic. There's no denying it. It is basically another level of looping where you... I think there's been and I've said this in a couple of videos, and I'm saying it again in this live stream, so I'm sorry if I'm boring people, but there's a fundamental shift in looping now. And it used to be, and I'll give you an example, it used to be for loopers, you'd get like this one, for example. Let's just get this in focus. Are you gonna focus? No, everything's happening tonight. There we go. Hang on. There we go. Right, let's try that. No, it's not happening. It doesn't like me. Okay. So basically, I don't know, I've done that now. I've managed to cancel my own tracking, so it's not tracking my face. Whoops. There we go. Let's leave it at that. There we go. There we go. Right, so basically on this one, oh, it's just going out of focus. This one, I'm going to explain it to you. So on here, it literally says record, dub, tap. On this one, it says stop, play, and clear. Okay, or stop and clear, or stop and play. And that's it. That's what those buttons are designed to do. That's all they do. and you can't change them. So for the past 10 years, that and this, things like these, they are designed to do a job, and they're designed to do what they say on the tin. So right there it says what these two buttons do, okay? And you can't change that. You cannot change it at all. You can't. You'd have to be an electrician and a scientist to go in this and open it up and change what it does. You can change a couple of modes, so you can say, well, have it as a one shot or things like that, but you can't say, I want that to be playback effects whilst turning on a backing track machine. Okay, you just can't do it because it wasn't designed like that. With things like the I'm going to bring in a different looper now and drop and break something. There we go. With things like this, we got a taste of what the future would be, and this is the Boss RC500. This is the Boss RC5. The 5 basically is the 500's little brother. So this is a one phrase looper, this is a two phrase looper, and this basically has on here, it has play, record, stop and track select. Okay, but that's what's printed on the tin. However, you can change what these do, and this was kind of the first time it was like, well, actually these buttons do a specific job. However, do what you like with them. And that is huge, because the fundamental shift I'm talking about is the fact that it's for the first time in the past 2 or 3 years, well, 10 years, it's kind of been like, you choose what that button does. And now with things like Loopy Pro, and I will talk about Loopy Pro a lot because I spoke to Michael who made the app, and I spoke to him at length about Loopy HD and we talked about, you know, what was Loopy HD, the Masterpiece Edition, if anyone remembers that. It then turned into Loopy Pro like 8 years later. The fundamental shift was it basically you want it to be an open box, and you want it to be, I want to put that there. There's no looper who is the same. There's loopers who are similar, like I'm talking performers, but then there's also loopers like beatboxers who don't want the same thing that guitar loopers want, or in the same way or in the same place. So things like Loopy Pro is basically a blank table, and you put things on the table to say, I want that there, I want that there, I want a fader there, I want an effect over there. And this is kind of starting to happen with the hardware loopers. So, for example, and I could keep going back to this, but this is why I do believe this is absolutely fabulous. This is the makings of that. So you've got 6 tracks, you've got 9 buttons, and those 9 buttons are completely changeable. And it does say things that you can do with them, and that's what it's written on. I almost wish they were stickers and you could peel them off, or they weren't written on there at all. It was just blank, because then you could basically, I keep seeing that as like record play, and I'm seeing that as stop. And on one of my memories that I've got saved, that's exactly what it is. But on another memory, it's completely different. That's track 1, that's track 2, record play. That's track 3, that's track 4. But on there, I've got a memory that is what it says on the tin. So you can now change how you loop, because you can change what the buttons do. And this is huge, because it basically means that the power is given back to you. And it's like, well, how do you want to loop? How do you want to do it? And this is huge for loop pedal artists, but also at the same time, it's huge for app loop artists as well. So much so that I think DubFX is now exclusively on Loopy Pro, and has said is never going back to a hardware pedal looper again. That's fine. That's totally his choice, because that's how he's been able to develop his loop pedals. One thing that he's able to do that you can kind of do on a hardware looper, on like the 600 and the 505, is he's got 8 loops, 3 down, and I copied that kind of pattern that he did on Loopy Pro, and basically he's done it so, like, imagine you've got 8 loops across, and they're your multi-phrase loops, but then you can actually have another loop underneath, and then that one will take over. So then if you've got track 1, loop 1, you've got track 1, loop 2, track loop 3. So you've got a mixture of multi and serial mode at the same time. And that's really clever, and that's a really, really clever way of looping, because you can just change it up. You can also then bleed from one song into another by adding different loops, but keeping the same drums, or changing the drums and keeping the same loops. The possibilities are endless, because You've built your own looper. Having said all that, the problem with apps is you need more gear. And as well as that, a tablet like an iPad or a Android tablet, something like that, was not solely designed for looping. It was designed to do multiple things. And that's the problem, where basically now this is all in one case. I'm not going to bring it up again, but like the 600, it doesn't matter which one it is. In fact, like this one, the RC500, that's a looper. And that's a looper all encased in one. You've got 3 buttons. I could expand that by adding this on it and adding loads more buttons and tell it to do loads of different things. And that's it. That's its dedicated job. And there's less failure with, I think, and this is my opinion, you can argue with me if you want to, I find there's less failure with a hardware looper than there is with a software looper, like an app. But also, at the same time, the apps themselves have become more solid and more robust over the years because the structure of like iOS's and Androids and all that have become better. So I'm not telling you which loop pedal to go for or which floor pedal one or tabletop one or app looper to go for. It's down to what you need. Now, if you need 12 loops and you want to basically trigger the sounds from all your keyboard stuff on Ableton, then you're going to be looping on Ableton because that's going to be the easiest way to do it. However, if you want to take all those sounds and just make a keyboard out of them and then have a hardware looper, you might get something like a Boss 500 or a Boomerang 3 or things like that. You might get different loopers depending on what you need. The Ditto loopers are fantastic for guitarists. They have a completely silent pass-through, which is quite a high thing to want because after you put it on the signal chain, you don't want it to go while you're kind of like, pressing the button. It's completely silent for that click to say, right, not looping now, pass it through. So the Ditto loopers are fantastic. I love them. The TC Helicon has a looper on board. Again, it's all digital. So it totally depends what you need. You may go, right, tabletop looper. I love the idea of having a mixer and just pressing the buttons, but also I'm going to plug in a MIDI pedal so I can actually do it with my foot if I need to, but then I've got the flexibility to use the tabletop. And some people go, well, there's effects on the RC600. The same effects pretty much are on the RC505 Mark II, but you've actually got 2 twisty knobs, two the control knobs, where you can actually control the yes, it will. This stream will be permanently available, so you can be able to watch it on the replay, no problem. But thank you very much for tuning in, and thank you for the kind comments over the past couple of days for everyone as well. We've been doing, I've been doing a lot of work for different things. So I know the channel is predominantly about looping, but we also are looking into a couple of new things, like, for example, the video that came out yesterday about how to get a budget or sort of hobby guitar sounding a little bit better. But thank you. But yes, APT, it's going to be available, so please obviously watch it again. If you have thought of a comment while you're away and you come back, put it in the comment section below, obviously, and then I'll answer it. Of course, I'll try and answer as many as I can. So let's go back over to this and turn this off. There we go. I'm still all doing this myself. I'm all clicking buttons and everything. Hi, this live stream is sponsored by DistroKid. That's why I'm wearing the t-shirt. And they are a music distribution company, and they have very graciously said that they want to sponsor this live stream. So we're talking about looping and what looper you should get. I know I put loop pedal on, but hey, there we go. If you don't know who these guys are, they are a music distribution company. If you have got music and you want to put it on things like Spotify and Apple Music, you can't just upload it. You've got to upload it to a music distributor, and that's who these are. And what you can do is, with the link that's on the screen, it's also in the description box below on a couple of different sites, because we're streaming to 5 different places at the moment. Then you can actually, with that link, get 7% off your first annual membership, because they don't charge you per release, they charge you per year, and it's one price, and it's $19.99, and you can get different versions of that. It starts at $19.99, and you can get 7% off with that. How cool is that? I use them. I use them for releasing my stuff, and I also release our duo stuff, which is 80s synthwave, which is Tokyo Wasteland. So if you want to have a look at Tokyo Wasteland on Spotify or Apple Music, please be my guest. It is me singing, and with my duo, with my band member partner that we play music with, and these guys are fantastic because what they do as well is they do a couple of things. Like, for example, whenever you release a single, an EP, an album, whatever it is, it instantly creates one landing page, which is called a hyperfollow page. Let's say you are on and you absolutely love Amazon Music. You absolutely love it and you want everyone to be on Amazon Music, but all your fan base are on Spotify. What you can do is, instead of forcing people to change their entire ecosystem of how they listen to their music, what you do is it generates the hyperfollow page, which is a landing page for that release, and then they can choose which one they listen through, and of course by that you get paid as well, which is fantastic because you can get the money from all the different streaming sites, and then DistroKid will go and get that for you, and obviously get all your royalties, which is fantastic. If you're in a duo like I am, for example, with Tokyo Wasteland, so there's me and Greg, and basically we can actually, for the money, you can split it. So you can actually tell DistroKid, put 50% to me, put 80% to me, no, I'm joking, put 50% to me and 50% to Greg, and then it just does it. It sends it automatically, which is great. It puts it in a bank for you and you can withdraw it whenever you need to. When any music distributor, it takes a little bit of time to gather the money back from the streaming sites, but it does do that and it gets it there, and it's really, really cool. So they also have loads of things like promo cards. They've been doing it on TikTok a lot recently, and they've got a thing for promo cards. But have a look at the link underneath and it'll take you to all the different parts of it, it's got absolutely loads. You can upload covers, you can upload original stuff. They'll even get the licensing for the covers for you. It does cost to put covers up, of course, to get the licensing for it, but you can do all of that there. So click the link that's in the description box, the one that's on the screen, and that'll give you 7%. And I just want to say thank you to DistroKid for very nicely sponsoring this live stream. Now, we've talked about this, which is floor, tabletop, or out. It's kind of the big one, isn't it? Like, how are you going to loop? If I'm doing this, or can I use my foot? Or if I'm playing, or if I'm not playing anything, if I'm just singing and I'm just creating everything with my voice, like harmonies and vocals and everything else, I can quite happily have my hands free. It depends on how you're looping. It depends what you're looping with. And this is a really big question to ask. Loads of people who go, I want a looper, they'll now go and get an app more than they would. But first of all, when I was like, I want to get a looper, I had to figure out which looper it was because it wasn't really even well known at the time. And then I dipped into what most people did, which is get an RC20 or an RC30 or RC20 XL. This became the looper. You know, the basically most guitarists just went and got one of these. And it wasn't enough for them. But some of them went, I can't do looping. I want to do looping, but I can't do it. And it became because you have to learn this. This is almost like an instrument. That you have to learn timing, you have to learn how to use it. And it's got bigger and bigger from there. The Headrush, the 600, the 505, Quantaloop was another app that basically mimicked the pedal scenario, but on an iPad or an iPhone. I've seen someone actually loop with just an iPhone and an audio interface, and they have then a Bluetooth pedal just to do a couple of things. Now, there was a bit of delay with the Bluetooth, but they were able to time it in such a way they did it. It's fantastic. And, you know, 10 years ago, you just couldn't do that, which now you've basically taken a small computer on stage with you and looping, which is great. Just make sure you put it onto Do Not Disturb mode so you don't get your text coming through, which I've done, by the way. So I've done all the mistakes and learned the hard way. Now, the next thing as well is, and this doesn't apply to every looper, but some loopers have things like this, rhythms and drums. You may want to go boom, boom, and you may make all the drums yourself. That's what I do. You may go, that's terrifying, and I actually want a drummer to keep me in time. And there are separate pedals you can get now and separate apps you can get now that have drum kits and loops and all loops of drum kits. Like the big one is the Beat Buddy. Everyone, as soon as I did videos for this and this, which is the RC5 and the RC500, as soon as I did videos for this, the number one request was, how do you work it with the Beat Buddy? And I don't own a Beat Buddy. I never have, because I don't need one. I don't use a Beat Buddy in that specific way. I think they're fabulous. I think they're an amazing piece of kit because of the whole thing. You can have different drum patterns for like intro, verse, chorus, and outro. They're really cool. I just don't use them because I create the whole, you know, boots and cats thing because I quite like doing that. But things like this can help you because they can help you stay in time. And for looping, that is paramount. So that is everything you need. So the idea behind rhythms and drums then comes to a point of, well, can it do the rhythm that I want? Can it do 6/8? Can it do 3/4? Can it do 4/4? Of course, probably mostly yes. And that's one thing. And then the second thing as well is what kind of drum kits are built in. So there's 90, I think there's 100 drum kits on this thing, the Donna one. It's got 10 kits and then it's got 10 styles. And then within those styles, it's got 10 beats, as it were. So there's funk, and then there's 10 funks. Does that make sense? There's fusion, and there's 10 fusions. And they're all different. But you can't change the drum kits. It's decided for you based on what is in here. Whereas the 5 and the 500 and the 600 and things like that, they now have multiple drum kits as well as the beats, and they're separated. With the very latest ones, the Boss RC5 the Boss RC5 5 Mark II and the 600, you can create your own things like they started doing that with the Boss RC10R, which was like a drummer and one phrase looper. So imagine the RC5 with a more integrated drummer. So I think Boss were like looking at the Beat Buddy and going, how can we make a version of that where it's got a looper and a Beat Buddy built into one? And that's where the 10R came out of, really. And there's a piece of software which is called the Rhythm Converter, which you can use to create your own beats now. So again, it's down to what you need, and also whether you want those beats to have variations, whether you want them to be different on the fly, whether you want them to be like I press a button and it changes like from a sort of like pressing a hi-hat to like then hitting a ride and crashes and stuff. Also, whether you want to play the drums yourself. And that's another thing with things like the app-based loopers, which means that you can bring other apps in. And I can't stand the metronome. Delta! I can't stand the metronome. I've got it in here. So this is an interesting topic. Do you have, obviously it's already there. Do you have a metronome running while you build your own beats, or do you freestyle? I completely freestyle. It's gone terribly wrong sometimes because of freestyling. And there's times when I wish I had like in-ear monitoring, but when I'm in a local, Irish bar, it's a bit overkill. Or from a local old man's pub playing, on a Friday, Saturday night, just to have like, a click track going through. I actually find it distracting. That's me personally. I much prefer to listen to a groove and hear the intonations between the grooves than listen to a let me turn that off. I can't stand it. So, whereas I'd rather go and feel something there to go and just bring something in. So, I might do it the other way around. And a lot of the times when I loop, I'm actually rhythmically strumming. So I'll and then it's gone wrong. Don't get me wrong. I've done it too fast. Where I've done it like for slower songs, I've done it really fast, and then I'm singing really quickly, and then and I can either kill the loop or just go for it and keep it fast. But then I've destroyed the song, and I'm just being honest because that does happen, because you have to keep all that in your head of like how fast the song and everything else. Now there are things that can help you. Glenn, good evening. I'm sorry, you did put something up there. I did see it. I just wanted to finish what I was saying. I've got a Line 6 JM4, which is real drum sounds recorded by real session drummers. It has over 200 different drum styles, not just the basic backbeats. That's really interesting. Okay, I didn't know they did that where they've got them. So they're all samples, right? So they're sampled drum beats. Are they individual? I realize they're drum beats. Do they also have the individual samples, like the kick, the snare, the hi-hat, or is it like rhythm patterns? That's really cool though, because that means that you can have a bit more of a real drum kit about you. And it also depends on how you play it. It depends on what you're doing with your stuff. If you're doing stuff where basically you just need a slight rhythm behind a load of vocal tracks, you might not need a full kit, but then you might want a cajon because you're playing in like a coffee shop as opposed to a full-on rock kit in a coffee shop, so it depends on the beats that you want. And things like the Line 6 JM4, there you go, there's a prime example. 200 different drum styles, so not just basic beats. So that means that you've got basically different styles for different scenarios. You could play the same song. I mean, think about this when I always give this example of Free Falling by Tom Petty. So Free Falling by Tom Petty, full band, everything else, and then you've got basically the John Mayer version. The acoustic version. I'll think of the acoustic version of a live track. People love that in certain scenarios. The acoustic version might not go down well on like a Saturday night, for example, like tonight. I'm playing in a week's time in another pub, and if I was playing with it, no, it's got to be boom, baka, boom. It's got to be like big, and it's got to be like a full kit, and that's where. For me, there's always an element that's missing, and the bit that's missing is that punch of a real drum kit, of a real kick. Nothing beats a real drum kit, it really doesn't. And I've even seen bands that have got a full band, they've got a looper, and what they do is they have headphones in, and the headphones are coming from the looper, so the looper's giving them the click or whatever it is, and they play along to that, and that's a lot of practice, but then also you can really do some cool damage with that, and by basically having a real drum kit. Their patterns, some are subtle, some are very, it's out of production now but available used for a decent price. I'm going to check it out. I'm going to have a look at that, the Line 6 JM4. That's interesting. I just want to hear it. I'm going to have a look at some YouTube videos about that. That's cool. Wicked. Thank you very much for that, Glenn. I wasn't aware about that because of course you say Line 6 and everyone just thinks about obviously guitar effects. That's the first thing that comes into my head. So I didn't realize they did a real one that has real drum sounds recorded by session drummers. That's interesting. And that's the other thing as well. You could of course get drum patterns, samples, and you can get loads of samples, and you can get samples on GarageBand and Logic and Ableton and Pro Tools and things like that, where you can actually get samples and build them in and then cut them to the right length and then import them into a looper. So it is a real drummer. The alternative is, again, with rhythm and drums, is you can actually have a full backing track. So you could actually have the full backing track from start to end, and this is kind of touching on the backing track thing we talked about with this, but you could have the full backing track of just the drummer, and that is your one loop. And then you could then obviously have another loop, which is only 4 bars long or 6 bars long or 8 bars long. Then you can then obviously then loop on top of that, but you've got to be in time and you've got to program it properly. And again, some people don't want to do that. Some people don't want to sit there for hours and before they even hit a gig just go, all right, I've got to sort this out, I've got to sort that out. So what's that there? Yes, Sean Phillips turned me onto it. Sounds like a real drummer. Really? That's cool. I think the closest for a manipulated drum beat to sound like a real drummer is probably things like the Beat Buddies. But that's interesting. I didn't know about that because, of course, it is real drummers. They've recorded them. That's cool. I like that idea. The drum kits on things like I know I talk about Boss loopers a lot because that's what I use. But there was samples on the Headrush looper board. And you could they had samples kind of, again, built in that you could pick. But they were only short little like 4-bar or 8-bar loops. And they just went round. So they were great to begin with, but what would happen is it'd get pretty boring pretty quickly because it would be the same feel. What I tend to do as well is I tend to loop more than one drum beat, as it were. So now I've got the flexibility with 6 loops with the RC600. I use the first 2 loops as drummers. But I don't put everything on both. So I'll put maybe the guitar strumming and hi-hats on one, and then I'll put the boots and cats, the beats, the kick drum and the snare on another, and then you can take them away throughout the song. If you go over to my friend Carl Wachner, if you've not seen Carl's YouTube channel, go and see Carl Wachner's YouTube channel. Absolutely fabulous musician who has dedicated his time to looping, and we did an interview last year about which is also what the podcast. So we have a podcast now, which is the John Paul Music UK podcast. Go and check it out. And he was one of the first people I interviewed, which was on an interview which was called "How Do You Loop?" And what he does, which I didn't even think of, but I could do it. I didn't even think about it. Is that he actually he does rhythm and boots and cats again, but what he does is he splits it up across the 3 or 4 loops that he has, because he's got the headrest looper board. So what he'll do is he'll have like the hi-hat but with guitar, or he'll have the boots and cats but with a bass, and as he takes stuff away, the drums come in and out, so then when all 4 loops are playing, the full kit's there, but when he drops stuff out, it naturally drops things down. And that's a really clever way of doing multi-phrase looping but splitting the drummer up into different parts. It also keeps it fresh as well, because you haven't got the same pattern going on all the time for 3, 4, 5, 6 minutes. You haven't got that same pattern, and then you also haven't got the thing where you have to put the whole drummer down before you even start looping. I'll put my hands up and basically say I'm one of those people that has done it where I've recorded loops and it's taken 3 or 4 minutes before I've even started singing. And part of that is the drums, and as long as you get your first loop down perfect, not close to perfect as you can, then the rest should follow suit, because they all follow that first loop. But I've been guilty of basically going, right, let's get all the drum parts down now, and then I'll go on to the guitars or the bass line, and then I'll put like little twiddly bits on top. Then I'll start singing. And the audience are bored. They've gone. And it's just basically sort of like, actually what you could do is you could put like a and then just go to the bass straight away and put the bass line down and sing straight away. And then go back and add in there whatever you're doing, maybe putting it on a different loop. So this is something I'm experimenting with at the moment, and this is why I wanted to bring up rhythm and drums, because it's something that we don't really talk about. We go loopers, cool, but we don't. But then we get into what's the beat doing, or how can I make it easier for me. So you might want to. It totally depends on what you're doing. You might want to go. I loop rock music, and then or heavy metal. So that you're gonna need like that kind of feel, that kind of like drum beat there. Whereas the way I loop is like guitar and looping vocals. So a little bit sort of David Gray, Katie Tunstall, Ed Sheeran style, that kind of feel. So that's my kind of thing, my folk kind of feel about it. So I can have that flexibility. So if you want a master, I do mean this genuinely, but if you want a masterpiece in looping for drums and rhythm, go and check out Carl Wachner's videos, and watch them very carefully, because the way he lays down his drums across the 4 loops that he's got for the headrest looper board is actually very clever, and it's very well thought out, because when he brings all 4 loops back, as I said before, the full kit's there. So it's really cool. Glenn, the RC600 looks like a blast. It is. I bought the old Boss RC20 XL when it first came out. Maybe time to upgrade, replace that one. Yeah, so 20XL, I sold my 20XL for this, which was the 30, and I kept that. And then I've gone obviously up from there, and then I went to the 300, but I kept that one. And then the 300 got sold. Then I went over to TC Helicon, and I went over to TC Helicon Voice Live 2. Then that got sold. Then I went the TC Helicon stuff was fantastic for effects. Looper, not so much. But then when they brought out I didn't have the Touch 1, but I had the TC Helicon Voice Live Touch 2. And I miss that looper. There's something about it. Again, it's because it's tangible, and I'm wondering whether I would enjoy using something like the 202 or the 505, because I've never used one. I've never used one. In all my years of looping, I've never even laid my hands on the old 505 or the 202. And I don't know why. I just don't know if it would fit into what I do. So things like that, where basically you've got like, you know, touch or things like that. The Voice Live Touch 2 had this ribbon at the bottom, and you could actually affect the sound with the rhythm. And it was so cool. There's a couple of I've used a couple of, like, I had a great photo shoot, which, well, there was a gig, and then basically guy actually photographed me, and there's a bit where I'm just going like that, like really serious look, and I'm just holding the button down on the thing, like holding the ribbon down and going. Rah, 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 rah. It looks cool. So yeah, and it just hangs off the the mic stand, just sitting there with all the cables hanging at the end. I think that's why that's the bit I didn't like. A bit of a cable freak when it comes to things like that. Anyway, but yeah, it's cool. I definitely need more than just one looper to do everything I'd like to do. You've been a big help. Thank you. I'm glad that's helped you. If you're interested, obviously, in all the looping stuff, go and have a look, obviously, at my channel. And the other thing I do as well is, of course, I have a mini course, which is on how to loop like a pro. However, before you do go onto that course, I have a free PDF. So if you go onto my, where is it? Have I taken it off? No, yeah. Just go onto my website. So it's johnpaulmusic.co.uk. Go all the way to the bottom, and you'll see download JP's PDF for looping tips. Grab that, because that's got some looping tips that they're my tips, that I've basically, my looping tips that I've gathered over the past like 15, 18 years, and just some basic tips just to help you with looping. But also I have a course which is called How to Loop Like a Pro. I wasn't going to talk about it tonight, but I might as well. So it's a concise course. You could get through the course in a couple of hours, maybe 3-4 hours. It's all video, and it's all basically about how to loop, or how I loop, and how that can help you understand structure of looping when you're looking at song structure as well as timing. So have a look at that. That course is available to purchase if you want to, but the PDF is completely free. Go and get the PDF if you want to, and that's on my website. Delta, I've got RC600 kick on an external pedal on-off, and records the hi-hat treble percussion on a loop track. Quick way to switch things up. That's cool. So you've got the RC600 kick. Oh, so you've got the separate actual sound on a poof, 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 like on a kick. So have you done that through a MIDI pedal? You've done that through to say this number is CC number blah blah blah, and then kick it, or is it done through like what I'm about to talk about, which leads me nicely onto things like this? Let me know. I'm quite interested in that, because I like the idea of the availability to play the drums inside the RC600, and I know 1 or 2 people on the RC600 Facebook group have talked about it and do it as well. Now, 1 second, apologies. If you're finding this helpful, can you do me a favor and just like the live stream? That'd be really, really helpful for me, because actually by doing that, it tells YouTube algorithm, Facebook algorithm, Twitch, tells them all, yeah, this is a good one. Send it out to more people. That'd be really handy. So if you have found this useful, please click the lower click and subscribe button and all that jazz. Anyway, the last thing I want to talk about in today's live stream is this. External pedals. What am I talking about? Well, I just showed you one. This is the Boss FS7 pedal, which is basically I think the FS6 is that way. This is the FS7. So it's no difference other than it's half the size. The FS6 is kind of over here, and it's like a bit stubbier. So you've got one pedal one side, one pedal the other. And what this is a 2-pedal control switcher. And a lot of the Boss pedals and some of the other pedals, like we said at the very beginning, the circle pedal has a external control switch plug-in, and that's what you plug this into. So this is an external switch. Already did like and will subscribe as well. Oh, great. Thank you, Glenn. That's cool. Have a look through my stuff. You might find it very interesting. Yeah, this can basically is a blank switcher, and then you control it based on what the looper does. So if the looper says if you press this button, it'll turn an effect on, or it'll go up or down a memory. So you might only need a one phrase looper like this, but by putting one of these on there, this could turn on the rhythm and turn off the rhythm, or this could be the tap tempo, or this could be memory up and memory down, and you've got all your loops stored in here. So this is actually very, very useful. These two married together are a nice little marriage. These two actually are very, very good together, because they complement each other very, very well, because there's so many things you can do with this. If you go into the manual for this, and it gives you a list of options that this can do, and you just tell it basically you've got 3 buttons. That's the main button, and then you've got control 1 and control 2. When you get to the RC600, there's 4 controls, so there's control 1 to 4, because you can have 2 of these connected to it. The other external pedal that I can't live without, and I haven't talked about it yet, it's on the floor and it fell off, is this pedal. This is a volume control pedal, and I can't live without it now, because I was teased by the RC300. So there was a thing with the RC300 where if you have a look at 300, if you look at pictures of it, or if you've got one, you'll know that you have an expression pedal on there. And I never used it for what it was intended. What I did was I changed it over so this would control the volume of the loops. And that's so handy for more than one reason. So let's just say you've got everything set, you've got your volume set, and then you go into a bar, or you go into a venue, you plug in, and you hit play on loops you've already got pre-recorded, or just your loops in general. You just put stuff down, and it's far too loud. You can just pull it back just a little bit, okay? Because this is, for me, this is controlling the volume of the loops itself. So this is really, really handy. The other thing you can do, of course, is you can do your own fade outs. You can also do your own fade ins. And when I got the Headrush looper board, the first thing I did was, I've got another pedal which is a Bespeco. Is it called Bespeco pedal. I did that exactly with that. I basically turned that into the volume of the loops, not the volume of my inputs like my microphone, my guitar, or anything like that, just the volume of the loops. Because the third thing you can do is a trick, and there's a really cool trick, and I saw someone else do it. I can't remember who was the first person I saw do it, but because it was quite a few years ago, and I think it was the 300 I saw them do it with, where basically you can obviously turn the volume down and turn the volume up, and that's fine. If you've got your individual volumes set, fine, but then this controls all the output of the volume of the loops. So therefore, what you can do is you can actually do a nice little trick, and it was someone who was doing, basically they had all 3 loops going, they couldn't bring any more in, and what they did was, while they were playing, imagine a 4-bar loop, like 1 2 3 4 2 2 3 4 3 2 3 4, and then on 4 2 3 4 they went like that. But they carried on playing and singing. It dropped all the loops and all the beats off, where they went da 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 da, and then they hit it hard, and then everything came back. What happens is, instead of just playing instead of just pressing stop start and going da 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 and start, they just pulled it down and pushed it back again, and it just, I don't know what it was, it just felt better because the loop was still chugging away. So it wasn't like you hit it and then it all just went and it just kicked in. It just kind of like, because there's that minuscule moment where it fades back in, it just went rumph and it just came back in, and it was so cool. The other thing you can do as well is you could do that on bar 1 beat 1. So if you don't want the drop to kick in, but you want to just play with the audience a little bit, you can sing and kind of go and just literally like 1 2 3 4, and they go, oh, the beat's gone, but he's still playing. Oh, there's the beat, it's come back, and that's so cool to do. I've done that. I do that almost on every gig. and it works every time. You get the desired effect. Also, fade outs, fade ins, they're really cool. And then obviously just general adjustment of volume control without having to bend down and go, oh, hang on a minute. You can just do that while still playing. So this is invaluable to me. So this, you've got basically, there's loads of people who make volume pedals. This is made by M Audio. It's about, I think it's about £17 on that Forest website, Amazon. So yeah, you can basically, I think it was about £17, and it works. It's just basically plugs in with jack, and away you go. And like I said, I had the Bespeco one for the other one for the RC, for the headrush looper board. So things like that, external pedals. You know, if I was to marry sort of that with the volume pedal, and I put that on the RC600, I can do a lot of different things, and it's fantastic. Oh, just a standard box pedal, cool. Are you're talking about the something like that? Like, is it an RC? Is it like the 5, like the 1? You just click it, and you just tell it to play the beat, like the kick drum go click, 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 click. That's really cool. I need to figure out how to do that. I haven't done that yet. That's cool. I like that idea. Delta, you can, if you want to send me how you do that on one of my videos, then what we could do is we could maybe make a video together. That'd be really cool. I like the idea of that. Because, yeah, I've seen people as well, moving over to something like this. This keyboard, this is the Arturia. I like Arturia stuff, by the way, if you haven't noticed. This is the Arturia Keylab 49 Mark II. And like most MIDI keyboards, it has 16 pads on it. And with... I'm talking about external pedals. I should have put down there external switches, because not just pedals, but you can actually do things where you can actually program that up so that can trigger different things as well. You've also got things like faders, and you've also got control knobs, and this could just add a different element. So you could, potentially I could control all 6 loops faders with all 6 of these faders here, and the pan or effects or things like that. So all of these things, it means you've got more stuff, but you can add up into more performance and more style of performance. Again, it totally depends on how you perform, and it also totally depends on what you're performing. If you're doing really ambient stuff that's kind of like sweeping in, sweeping out, you may not need a drum kit. You may just want like all and that's fine. You may find that you are doing country music and you need or you're doing blues and you're doing 12-bar blues, for example. So it just depends on what you're going to do for. By the way, just to let you be aware, Delta, if you're going to do that with the volume pedal, you need to do it as an assign. You can't do it as a as just one of the buttons. So do it as an assign so the target mode is expression, and the source is expression, and the target is loop level. So there we go. I've got a short video on that if you want to have a look. And if you are interested in anything like the Boss RC5, the 500, the Headrush looper board, and the 600, and even the Circle looper, and the TC Helicon Voice Live Play Acoustic, the Morningstar, the even things like the FS6 and FS7 pedals, I have videos of all of them. And with things like the 5, the 500, the Headrush looper board, the 600, I've got multiple videos, and I've also got playlists as well. So I just want to obviously let you be aware of that, because of course you may have seen one of my videos but not realize I've actually got a playlist of videos all about all these different things. I'd just like to basically end on this. This live stream has been very nicely sponsored, and it's sponsored by friends over at DistroKid, who are a music distribution company where you can actually give your music to them and they push it out to all the online stores and streaming sites around the world. So with other music distributors, they charge you per release, or charge you per album, or charge you per single. DistroKid don't do that. They charge you one price per year, which is $19.99, and you can do different tiers as well, and you get 7% off with that link. And they very kindly give us this link to give you 7% off your first annual membership. So if you are releasing with maybe a different vendor, have a look at DistroKid, because they've got some really cool things which are really forward thinking. You can even do stuff now with Dolby Atmos and lossless audio, which is really cool. So have a look at things like that. They've got things like promo cards. The promo cards are basically, you've got videos that they just generate by putting your album artwork on there, and then you've got promo static cards that you can just put onto Instagram straight away. Really, really cool. So yeah, have a look at DistroKid. The link is in the description on a couple of different sites that we're streaming on, but also just go distrokid.com/VIP/John Paul Music UK, and that is there for you. So glad I came across this live stream. By the way, a volume pedal is one pedal I can't live without. Exactly, I can't live without it either. It's just control at your feet, isn't it? Depending if you go from one gig to another, but also some tricks to play with it as well. Delta, I've got the same volume pedal. I need to get it all linked up. Great minds, LOL. Cool, excellent, fantastic. So guys, I'm just, oh, hello, Delta. Quick question. Oh, question time. If you get the chance, live performance, would you recommend using in-ear monitor or speaker? No worries if you won't get the chance. Okay, actually, that's a very good question. Just behind me, there is a very unique speaker. And this speaker is basically made by Mackie, and they don't make it anymore. And it's called the Mackie Reach. It's a lot smaller on the screen than you think it is. It's actually quite wide. Let me just put my hand on it. It's very big. It's a 700 watt speaker, and it has, if I can spin it round, it has 4 ins, and you've also got pedals as well for reverb, and you've actually got an app where you can actually control the volumes on the app, which is clever. But it has 3 speakers inside it, and it's got it's got 3 tweeters basically, all angled, and then at the top and bottom it's got speakers. So you've got 2 speakers top and bottom, you've got 3 and it's got a really wide throw, and that's why I like it. I only use 1 speaker. I don't use stereo speakers. I use that. Now you may notice this square here, and that is an additional speaker, and that's pointing at me. And basically, if you imagine that that's the front, don't imagine, that is the front, and that's the back, and I'm playing that way, and then the audience are over there. This speaker points at me, and that is my monitor. So I don't have to carry a separate monitor. This is the Mackie Reach. They now have the Reach Go, which is a smaller one. They have the Thump Go, which is battery-powered ones as well. They're really good, but the Reach was a bit of a concept idea, and then unfortunately they discontinued it. But this thing was $1,000 when it came out. I didn't pay that. I actually found one for the equivalent of $300. The guy just didn't want it, and I was just like, I'm buying that now. It's got loads of cool things on it, and it's just one. It also means I only have to take 1 stand, so I've actually taken 1 speaker stand, 1 speaker. It is a big speaker, don't get me wrong, but for bigger gigs, this is really it's got such a good throw on it. It's really good. And you can link 2 of them together. There's a link cable for it to link 2 of them together to make it stereo, but it's flipping loud. I play at like local pubs and clubs and stuff, and that'll pump out no problem. So to answer the question about basically, do I use in-ear monitoring or do I use monitors? That's my monitor right there. So I use monitors technically because I use this as the monitor. I haven't used in-ear monitors for a long time. I used to use in-ear monitors for a little while, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, because it's basically I needed to hear stuff like, you know, no matter where I was. And if sometimes when I go to a venue and they've got a built-in PA but they've got no wedge, you're screwed. Yeah, I went to a venue not so long ago, and they didn't have the wedges working because it was like an open mic night, and that's fine. They just didn't have it working. But when you're looping, you can't hear it properly because it's throwing the sound out back to the wall and then back to you, and you just have to rely on things like the flash on the RC600 as your timekeeper, and you can have to follow that and not follow the sound as much. That's hard. That's really hard. So for things like that, yes, I would probably consider things like in-ear monitoring is a great option. A friend of mine uses in-ear monitoring. They've got the ones that are literally molded to their ears, and they use that a lot. And he gets them all ready, he gets them all sorted up, and the first song he goes, he just takes them out because he needs to hear himself. He needs to hear what the rhythm's doing for the guitar. So yeah, he does use them though, and it's one of those things where I think if you go full in on in-ear monitoring, you can't really go back. It's also down to the venues. Some venues just don't have that capacity to do that with, but then you could plug it into something like this, so the out of that could come to your in-ears. Depends on what you've got. Also depends if you're walking into a venue that has a PA and they have their sound engineer and you go, yeah, we've got a wedge and that's what you're using. And no, I won't plug your in-ear monitor in, thank you very much, because I haven't got enough channels. So it just depends. So yeah, I mean, in-ear monitors is probably like the sweet spot, but then I feed off the crowd a lot, so I don't want to distance myself away from the crowd. Certainly if it's in a local pub, in-ear monitors looks a bit silly, but then if you're on a bigger stage, in-ear monitoring is definitely worth it. But then at a bigger stage, you normally have wedges anyway. I normally wear ear defenders, if nothing else, like little in-ears if I'm on a big stage, because I'm in my 40s now and I have tinnitus, so it's not nice. So there we go. So it depends. It totally depends. I know some people who use them and they swear by them. So it's down to, all I would say is, everyone can use wedges and everyone can use monitors. Not everyone uses in-ears. Try it. Go and try it. Try like a semi-decent. Don't get cheap pair. Like try a decent, semi-decent pair. If you can trial some, try it and see what you think. It might be for you. You might go, I can't loop like this. I can't feed off the audience. I don't like it. Or you go, this is awesome. I can hear everything, and you'd be fine. It's totally down to you. So I hope that helps, Delta. Just, but for me, if I'm gigging with this speaker, I've got my own monitor. It's just right there. Stephen, go John, go Stephen. That Mackie speaker seems like a great PA and monitor for small, medium. It is. Mackie Reach, if they still have the website up if you want to have a look at it, but it is discontinued, unfortunately. They do now have, I say, the Thump system, and they have the Thump Go system, which is battery operated. That's not battery operated. You can't put that on batteries. It's got to be plugged in. Corin used to make some. Oh, Carvin. I don't know Carvin. Carvin makes film products also out of production now. Oh, okay, that's why I don't know them. I'm sorry. Yeah, that great speaker. I love Mackie speakers. I'm a bit like, I've always had Mackies like at some point, and my dad was a sound engineer and we used some of them as well. So long time ago. But the new ones now, the new battery powered, the power they can get out of battery powered speakers is unreal. The new sort of DSPs they use to kind of push the technology forward is incredible. So yeah, Mackie Reach. Have a look at, if you look at something, want to look at the similar thing that this does, have a look at the Mackie Thump Go. It's about yay big, so probably about half the size of that, but again you can pair them up in stereo pairs, which is really cool. So guys and ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for obviously contributing to the live stream. Now if you've missed the live stream and you're watching this on the replay, then if you think, oh guys, the people who are here, if you've basically gone, damn it, I should have asked that question, then this is going to be available for replay. So then you'll be able to put it in the comments, and I'll leave the comment section open. So then if you obviously want to ask a question, how to choose a loop pedal or how to choose a looper, I'm going to change it on the live stream to say how to choose a looper. Loop pedal sounds a bit, obviously, that we're just talking about pedals. Then ask the question. I'll try and answer it as quickly as I can. I just want to thank as well for DistroKid for sponsoring the live stream. Again, go and check out the link. The description's in the box. Description is in the box. The link is in the description box. I'm very tired. Been up since 6 a.m. The link's in the description box. So go and check it out. And all that remains is to say thank you very much. And also, I will be live streaming every Tuesday. So I'm going to be live streaming in the UK every Tuesday, and as much as I can, I want to keep it at the same time, which is going to be 2 p.m. Tuesday Tunes. So Tuesday Tunes at 2 p.m. So Tuesday Tunes at 2 p.m. with me, and what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be doing a how to loop system. So I'm going to be picking a couple of songs that I use that are covers that are in my repertoire. I'm going to play them, and then I'm going to break them down live and show you the loops that I've done and how I've done them. So if that's something that is useful for you, it's going to be 2 p.m. at British summertime. So work that out for yourselves, whatever time that's going to be for you. And then I'm going to be doing that every Tuesday until I run out of songs. I'm going to learn new ones. But thank you very much, Glenn. Best regards from Montreal, Canada. Oh, Canada. Oh, Canada. Sorry, couldn't help myself. Yeah, lovely. Thank you very much for tuning in. As I say, it's gonna the Tuesday tunes is gonna be at 2 p.m. So that might be very early for Glenn. He might be just getting into the coffee, into the Tim Hortons, or crunching on breakfast at that point. It might be even earlier. But whatever time it is, I'm also gonna have them available on replay. So if it's already been live streamed, you can watch them again and again and again and take notes on how I loop. But with that, thank you very much for joining us. And if you're watching on any other social media sites and it's on replay, give me a shout, let me know you're okay, and then enjoy the rest of your weekend.